Welcome to 412 Sports Talk, the number one podcast for Pittsburgh sports. Steelers, we talk it. Penguins, we talk it. Pirates, yeah, we talk it. With the biggest guests.
Bob Pompiani, Pittsburgh legend. Mayor Bill Peduto, the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, is on with us. Doran Dickerson, West Allegheny legend.
Trey Essex, welcome.
Available on iTunes and Spotify. Hosted by Mad Chad Nolan.
It over too much. Well, now he's not turning it over at all.
And Eddie Provident.
We've got the best team in football.
And now, 412 Sports Talk.
All right, welcome back to the 412 Sports Talk podcast. A little different this week. It's me, yours truly, Chad, Mad Chad, 412. Eddie, my life partner, is not with me. He is doing adult stuff. He just bought a house. So I had to reach out to someone that I trusted that would fill his void. And I got none other than Jesse Marshal from The Athletic. Jesse, thanks so much for being my guest host, a co-host this week.
I just feel like the only downside to this for you is that, like, I don't have that Eddie voice.
I don't have the Eddie voice either.
Sweet Eddie voice, you know. It's like it's going to be missed this week.
Yeah, I want him to like read me bedtime stories. I tell him that all the time. So Eddie's moving. Good luck with that. He's going to Monroeville. He was asking Steve Mears for tips about what's good to eat out there. So good luck to Eddie. I'm sure he'll be listening to when we're done here. And just to mention that this podcast, 412 Sports Talk, is sponsored by MCM Studios. If you are a musician, if you're writing a book and you want someone to record it with audio, if you're a karaoke singer, a guitar player, a rapper, go to mcmstudios.com. Mike Hitt is a professional producer. I'm sure you've heard of them if you're anywhere near the music industry. And if you mention 412 Sports Talk, you will get 15% off your first session there, where they do professional recording, editing. They make beats and soundtracks, all that stuff. So make sure you check them out. Jesse, as we get started here, I did tell you off air. So my listeners, they want to talk puck with you. That's what we like doing. But Ben Roethlisberger is coming back. So we have to have some hot takes about that. I never see you talk too much about Steelers. Do you have an opinion about like Ben coming back? Do you think it's the good thing? I mean, he took a pay cut. What are your thoughts on that?
$15 million it lowers the cap hit by over $15 million.
Right. They're actually under the cap as of right now.
Right. So, you know, I make a lot of jokes about PFF, you know, like especially for year. Like I made a lot of like PFF jokes, and there's that one guy that tweeted like if only Chase Claypool had a quarterback to give him the ball. Like just ignored. What was it, like a week after he had just thrown a deep ball against Denver to Chase Claypool?
Right.
I think the reality of the situation is that Ben Roethlisberger is probably right now like the 16th best quarterback in the league.
Middle of the pack.
Right. I mean, but what's the alternative here? What's your plan if he doesn't play?
Right.
Sure, you get more money, right? You're going to get more money, right? You can just cut him. You can just get rid of him, right? And you're going to have to eat some shit on that. But what do you? Mason Rudolph's not going to get you to where you want to go. You're not going out and getting Deshaun Watson.
No.
So it's a bridge. I mean, if it's just for 1 year, it's fine with me. I'm just not upset by this, Chad. I'm not upset by it.
Ben's one of those. Chris Letang kind of falls in this category to me as well, and same with like Marc-Andre Fleury, where there's really no it's hard to find people that have any rational thoughts or takes about him, other than maybe like discussions like this, because I listen to like local radio or national radio, and the thing is, he's such a polarizing name that these guys, they know what they're doing when they say like, oh, Ben's the most overrated quarterback ever. They know right away people are going to be like, blah, 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 how dare you say that, and call in and stuff like that. It's all about reaction. I tell Eddie all the time, that's why we wanted to start this podcast. And I know that's why other people wanted to start their podcast, was because it was like, well, it's one thing to like say, oh, that's all hot takes and I can't stand that shit. It's another thing like, okay, let's show them how we can do it. Here's the thing. Here's some facts. Ben in the Steelers. So when Ben starts, they went 12-3 last year. 15 games, right? 12-3 through 33 touchdown passes and 10 picks. I think any team in the league other than maybe Green Bay and Kansas City would probably take that, right? You know, with their quarterback and that record. The last 15 games without him, they're 8-7, and they have 22 touchdown passes and 16 interceptions. So like
painful
you said,
too, though. Painful.
Right.
It's a painful 8-7.
unless you're going to get Deshaun Watson, you're not. Unless you're going to get Carson Wentz, you didn't. Unless you're going to draft one of the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft or not, then he still gives you your best option to win. Then hopefully after this year, he has his nice goodbye. I like that now the fans are going to come back, so he'll be able to go out on better terms. Hopefully he doesn't throw a billion picks in a playoff game, but at least he gets to go out with the fans giving him some nice, a nice little send off. And then next year they have like an absurd amount of cap space. Then you start going, okay, now it's time to find a replacement.
No Uncle Randy calling the plays next year. That's
I'm
huge.
excited about what Matt Canada can do. I like all the motions and stuff like that, and I would like to see them draft like a running back and maybe a receiver later in a draft that would help incorporate that.
Imagine if they get you walk out of the draft with Najee Harris.
I mean, we talked about that this week with Nick Barabaugh. To me, especially, so you have an aging quarterback. What better way to take pressure off him? Because we don't want him I'm the biggest Ben fan ever. There's no reason why he should be throwing 50 times in a game. That's just I don't even want Aaron Rodgers throwing 50 times in a game. You need to run the ball. You
cannot supplement a 5-yard, 4-yard pass game for a run game. Doesn't work. Not going to work. Tried it last year. That is not a supplement for a running game.
And it just opens so many things up, play action and screens and all this other stuff. To me, Najee Harris is a guy that I'm looking for people that will move the needle. To me, that's a guy who if Ben has nothing, he goes back to pass. There's nobody open. He can dump that ball off to him, and Najee Harris can turn nothing into something. And that's something that they desperately needed last year.
100%. And I like you bring up the play action piece. Who are they fooling right now? Throwing the ball 50 times.
And not with Benny Snell, with Benny Snell in the back.
Exactly. Like this isn't a versatile backfield that really fools you at this point in Ben's career. So I mean, I get the idea. You want to protect him too, right? You don't want him dropping and taking 5-step drops and sitting back there for an hour. And especially now he's going to have a different center, and say what you will about Marquise Pouncey's ability to snap the ball. Mm-hmm. Blocking was not, even in his worst last year, was still better than what a lot of teams are dealing with at the center position. So that's a concern. You hope you can reconstruct the line a little bit, but any just competent Chad running game, running game. You don't need records being broken here. You just need the illusion of a threat is really what they need, and take that little bit of pressure off him. And then I don't know much about the body at Ben's age. I'm not that old. I just wonder, here's the thing, right? Like, is it benefiting him, to have that whole year under his belt now and not have like the mystery of how his body's going to react to that surgery kind of like lingering over him? I mean, I don't know.
Not to give him excuses, but I know that he did, and even we had Dejan on the show, and against Dallas, he did hurt his knee, and everybody was like, "Oh, his arm." But if anybody that knows how to throw a football, you plant your plant foot. If you look at his stats after that Dallas game, like Dallas game, all the games up until after the Dallas game, and then the following week, the rest of the season, it was like a completely different player. He had I think he had 24 touchdown passes and 5 picks after the Dallas game, and then he was almost like even down the stretch. So you take that into consideration. With the offensive line was not good. He had no running game. I know there's people out there that are just like, I don't like Ben, so I don't even care, to be objective about it. I get it. I'm not saying that he's still this great quarterback. I know he's not, but I don't see a better option. He still gives them the best chance to win. And that's all that matters.
Correct. That's it. And if you want to go out and let's put it like this, Jay, if you want to replace him through the draft, you're going to have to spend your first pick on getting a quarterback. Right? Which means you're not going to get what you need out of running back, which means you're still chasing other problems later on down the line. And any quarterback you get in the second or third round is not going to be good enough to play over Ben this year. Or at least he's not going to give you more than what this age and this era Ben Roethlisberger is going to give you if you just give him another year contract. So for me, I'd rather just see this happen, because it prevents them from having to chase issues potentially further, years on down the line, just because they wanted to get a head start on this without any real backup plan.
Exactly. Well, listen, we're going to transition. People come here, they want Jesse Marshal. If you're a Pens fan, that's who you want to talk to. I tell people all the time not to kiss your ass because you're on my show or because we play Call of Duty together, but I really do believe that you have some of the best insights in here. And the thing about it is, I like to get our listeners, anybody that listens to my podcast, I'm like, you listen to my podcast? That's awesome. Cause I just, I just did this for fun. And now we're kind of like, hey, now we have like real guests and credentials and all kind of crazy stuff. So it's kind of, it's definitely like humbled me that happens. But I told everybody you were coming on a show, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 13, 14 questions. I might not answer all of them, but I did want to get your feedback on some of these questions that some of our Pens fans have. This one says from Frank Rock, who will be the first defenseman to be traded away in the Hextall-Burkle regime, or should they even trade a defenseman? What's your thoughts on that?
It's going to be somebody left-handed because they have too many of those.
Let me throw something at you. Ryan Wilson, who's a friend of our show, agreed with me. He wrote a blog post today, and I said this a couple weeks ago. If I'm moving somebody that I think I can get something in return for, it might be Brian Dumoulin. What do you think about that?
Well, here's the question. I don't disagree with that, and I've kind of caught a little bit of flack for. I mean, even go to. I don't know. Brian's gutsy for writing that, by the way. I mean, give him credit. I've like danced around the topic. I think the question is Brian Dumoulin the same player now as he was post-injury? Early returns say no. And a couple years ago, Chad, probably 2.5 years ago, I don't know if you remember this, we had a discussion about it when I wrote the article at the time, where the Penguins and Oilers played, and Dumoulin and McDavid went head to head. And he didn't, nobody keeps up with Connor McDavid, right? Like, he's not going to do it. Right. But Dumoulin kept him in front of him for most of the night. And I remember walking away from that game thinking, like, man, like, to have a defenseman as big and rangy as Dumoulin is, with that turning ability, where his pivot and his ability to transition from offense to defense makes him, some nights he looks like Gonchar out there, If that ankle injury is bad enough that he doesn't have that anymore, you bet. I mean, you should sell before the bottom falls out on the stock, right? I mean, I hate to say that, it makes you sound so heartless, right? But like, he's not as effective of a defenseman without that trait, period, just flat out. He can't play top minutes like that. And going back to the beginning of this year before he came out of the lineup, that's probably the worst hockey I ever seen him play.
He was bad in
Montreal.
Yeah, he was like, he was brutal. I remember people were like, "Oh, because it's always Letang's fault." I know it is, and I was like, no, this is not just Letang.
We got to remember, Ron Hextall doesn't have an emotional Stanley Cup connection to him,
and I love it. I love that.
There's no like, I got to keep this guy around because he won with me. That being said, I still get the indication it might be Marcus Pettersson.
I mean, that's who it should be. I think, in knowing how GMs work in the NHL and how like they're, and I'm saying that and not in a positive way, because what I'm thinking is Brian Dumoulin and they see a guy that won 2 cups, and that's all they see sometimes. And you'll hear, if he does get traded, or you go watch NHL Network, you'll hear one of the guys going, "Well, this is a guy that won, he won 2 cups," and that's all they'll say. And
they'll follow you forever.
Yep. So Marcus Pettersson, they're like, yeah, we'll give you like a 5th round pick for that. But like, if you're trying to get a forward, which I'm guessing is what we're looking into doing here, then that's who I would move, because that's probably you need to give something to get something.
Right. Yep. 100%. Yeah. And you could still, I mean, look, if the improvement you're looking to make is let's be realistic, it's probably on the 4th line, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's definitely
an area need it. You're going to be able to find something useful for Marcus Pettersson. I am like torn on this because the injury really kind of, I think, derailed Pettersson's Penguins career this year, because I thought that in the early portions of the season, you remember he snuck in that one night and sniped that one top corner, like he was looking pretty good, and then it all like out of sight, out of mind, right? So we'll see. I mean, the big thing for me is, what does Dumoulin look like in game shape? Like, what does it look like when he's back in the lineup? And if it's, if it's not great, I think you got to start considering the possibility.
Yeah, I agree. Let me see here. Let's see. Let's go to Pens fan 87 says, when will Evgeny Malkin break out of his slump, if ever?
Oh man, I keep saying like today.
It's coming.
I feel like I mean, traditionally, he's always better with sit out. I didn't think he was particularly bad against Philadelphia in game 1.
No, but he cost me $10. I thought he was going to score a goal.
Yeah, that'll happen. I just don't know. I don't know. I will tell you this, like, if you're the type of person out there that's on the internet talking about like the demise of Evgeny Malkin and like, you're proclaiming that the end is here, you're going to be sorely disappointed by that.
right.
That's not the case. I don't think it's over. We've seen this before from Gino. Like, hockey is a cyclical game, and I think he's starting to find it. So you kind of hope that, hopefully somebody just makes him angry tonight really early.
The only
That's
thing,
the best. That's the best.
Yeah,
possible
no.
thing
Watching him though, it's starting to get to that point where like Father Time again with Ben Roethlisberger. It's the same. Like he's coming, and even Sid to the point. I think I was talking to Danny Sherling from Penn's blog about this, and it's like I watch Sid sometimes, and you'll see him try to do his typical, like he'll make a cut and go, and you could just see that his body is like, nah, I don't know anymore. And Gino's the same thing. I was watching Gino on the boards. I've never seen him lose so many board battles and get knocked off the puck. And I that's probably so freaking frustrating to him. It's the same thing with Ben. We're like, wait a minute, I can't scramble anymore. I can't, like, your mind's like, what you could do, and your mind wants to do it, but your body's like, nah, not anymore, bud.
And then we have to consider what Rob said, about the ice time situation in Russia and the lack of it that he had going in. And I honestly, Chad, like, I think that's one of the greatest indictments of Jim Rutherford, was the fact that he couldn't get his star forward, one of them, ice. Like, where was the connection there? How are the Penguins unaware of this? This is why they need a hockey ops department right here. Like, that's a great reason, right? So I'm not, and that's not to absolve him of the blame, right? But like, I think a lot of what I see, and this is, to be fair, is getting less and less frequent, is all to do with line changes and bad decisions that are driven off getting off the ice sooner than he probably should. And that to me screams I'm winded, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that to me backs up what Rob's story is, because if you're trying to change, with the other team coming into your zone, I mean, we all played, hockey growing up.
To some extent.
If you're running to the bench and the other team's on the attack, you're whooped. That's it. So I think with time, that comes back. You start to see it happen less and less. I'd love to see him shoot more. I think he'd solve a lot of his own problems right now just by putting him on the net from everywhere. Get lucky, right? Get a bounce. See, you've got the shot. He's got the velocity. That certainly hasn't changed. So my official answer to that question, Chad, is any day now.
All right, fair enough. We're gonna do two more, and then we're gonna actually bring in our guest for the second segment. Hunter Hodies is gonna join us, so we're just gonna keep rolling with Penn's talk. I'm excited to have Hunter on. We're gonna do two more here. TJ McClune, this you might have fun with this one. He says, "Was Milan Kraft an underrated player? What is his career if it begins 2004, 2005, in the last 4 seasons instead of starting in 2000?"
Probably worse, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why though. Here's why, because like. So let's acknowledge the fact that Milan Kraft did score 14 goals one year. That's not like, you might say to yourself, that's not great, Jesse. Right. Early 2000s, like pre-rule changes.
Yeah.
Right. But I think, Chad, that those rule changes helped him because he wasn't very fast. So I think you take the red line out, right? And you get rid of the 2-line pass and then put him in that environment. It's probably going to be harder for him because he's got to skate more,
Yeah, no.
He kind of played in that dead puck era, like the tail end of it a little bit, which I think helped him out. But Milan Kraft, like, wasn't even really my favorite Penguins winger of that era. It was probably Tomas Sorovi. Who I think would have been better off in that 2005-ish era with no red line.
When I think underrated, who I think of real quick is Robert Lang.
Oh my God.
Super underrated.
Like, in the annals of Penguins history, people, and I'm like, I'm not like old, but I'm older.
You're
now,
getting there.
you know what I mean? Like, so like people, there's now a whole generation of fan who weren't alive during those runs, and I just, how's this for an analogy, Chad? Robert Lang is the early 2000s version of John Cullen.
Oh, I like that.
Like the Penguins,
and he was underrated too.
Super underrated, and he didn't stick around. Obviously, he got traded, and the trade obviously got the Penguins into the Stanley Cup final. But we don't talk about him. Like nobody talks about Robert Lang.
Yeah,
like that Kovalev Lang Straka line was stupid. It was stupid good. Like that's 3 of the smartest hockey players that I've probably ever seen in my life playing on the same line together for a really long period of time too, right?
Yeah.
They spent most of the year together there, Chad. Like that wasn't like they didn't just whip that up like HBK in the playoffs. Like it was Kovalev Langstraka for 82 games. Like it was like the whole year.
All right. Last one here. My boy Joe Hello. This is actually one of my lifelong friends. He wants to know your thoughts on 2 possible trade targets. And I got a lot of trade questions, so I didn't want to answer them all. But 2 guys, Bobby Ryan and Eric Stahl. Thoughts?
I'm not as crazy about the Eric Stahl thing. I mean, like I get the idea, but I'm over the win one for the Gipper thing.
Okay.
You know, like it didn't work with Patrick Marleau. You know, I don't. I mean, to be fair, he does probably fit the system a little bit better.
Yeah, but, no, he does. And I was like, when I saw him the trade between him and Minnesota and Buffalo, I was like, man, I don't know, I would have been on that. But
yeah, I mean, I would think about it probably. Bobby Ryan, I'd be probably more interested in.
9 goals, 9 assists,
dude. And here's the thing, like he's been keeping that puck alive in the offensive zone. And like, how bad do the Penguins' top 6 need that right now? You know, like they just can't. Even the Malkin line has been a little too one and done for me. And you need a guy that can get down there and just dig pucks out and keep plays alive. And he's been doing it.
I can't imagine he would cost a whole lot either, to be honest. Like,
I don't even know, man. This used to be so weird, you know? Like,
no, yeah, because
so
here's the thing. These trade stuff, you got to understand that, like, people got to understand teams are trying to, no one wants to take salary on.
Right. And
like at all.
You have the visa issue if you're coming from the North Division. Like, you're going to have a hard time getting into America. So it's going to be a weird situation.
I think there's going to be, like, more people trying to sell than buy. Like, I think
potentially.
Yeah.
They just like a third of the league needs a goaltender.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So
that was one of the things I wanted Pens to get. But yeah, I'm in for Bobby Ryan. That intrigues me, and I never thought those words would come out of my mouth either. So
they look great.
All right. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna keep Jesse here hostage. We got Hunter Hodies coming on. I'm gonna take a quick break. We're gonna hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
412 Sports Talk family, what's going on? It's your guy Eddie P. I'm sitting in MCM Studios right now with our sponsor, my man Mike Hitt. Mike, what's going on, brother?
What's up, bro? 412 Sports Talk Podcast, Pittsburgh, PA. What is up?
What we're doing is, you know, we're a local podcast. We talk Pittsburgh sports. We're completely supported by people that are either from Pittsburgh or have ties to Pittsburgh. And even our sponsor, MCM Studios, is over in Allentown, in the heart of the city of Pittsburgh. But I wanted to bring you into the studio so you could see what Mike's got going on, and you can see a little bit of, what happens behind the scenes here at MCM Studios. Mm-hmm. So, Mike, what are you working on right now, man?
I'm working with always a stable of talented artists. Whether they're from Pittsburgh, they come to Pittsburgh to come to MCM Studios, they move here from out of town, whatever the case may be, a young, old, guy, girl, pop, rock, reggae, R&B, trap music. You know, I just work with a lot of guys that need the love and the attention and the direction in order to get their sound and their business together and their whole artistry, you know, in a position that is the quality and the vision that they were looking for. I kind of just help them bring all that together. So they're like, oh, you know, or I would have been lost for the next 3 years if you wouldn't have said, hey, go do this, or sing your song like this, or write a song like this, or this is a good look for you as an artist. That's really what MCM Studios does, and what I have going on is just continually helping artists. If they get famous, they get famous. If they don't, they don't. But just helping them along on this artistic journey so they can look back, and it felt like it was worth it.
Yes. I know how much it means to be a musician and need that backup. And I'll be honest with you, Mike has been a big part of the business side of 412 Sports Talk and how much we've grown as a business too, helping us with the legal side of things, giving us all the tips that he's learned in 10, 11 years of business. So, like I said, I just wanted to get you guys to take a look at the studio, hear it from Mike himself, and just get a little bit of the behind the scenes of one of our sponsors, our first sponsor, MCM Studios. And you can check them out at 412mcmstudios.com. You can check them out on Facebook at MCM Studios Pittsburgh. Check Mike out on Twitter at Mike Hitman with 2 T's. let's build this Pittsburgh community, because there's a lot of cool people, a lot of talented people, and a lot of great things going on in the city. Mike, you got anything else to leave them with?
You know, support the people around you that are doing cool things. If you can see that they're serious and they're dedicated and they're putting the time and they're making the investment in themselves, at least make, at the very minimum, the investment of believing in them. That's what I did for 412 Sports Talk podcast. That's what I do at the studio with the artist. Just look at your life as one big investment, and I really think by doing that, we can all help bring everybody around us up.
So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this little mini tour. We'll be back with stuff like this. In the meantime, again, I'm Eddie Provident. From Mad Chad Nolan, from my man Mike Hitt. We'll catch you later.
Peace.
All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for our sponsor for our MCM Studios. I'm from 412 Sports Talk. MCM Studios is our sponsor. Remember to Google MCM Studios or go to mcmstudios.com. You get 15% off your first session with Mike Hitt, who is a professional producer. He's recorded with like Mac Miller, Wiz Khalifa. So go get your demo or your SoundCloud or whatever it is. Take it to him so you can actually try to actually make money as a professional musician. Coming back here, we got an old friend of mine who I actually used to just go on his show all the time, Hunter Hodies from Pittsburgh Sports Now. Hunter, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? Yeah, you came on Locked On Penguins a couple times last year. You know, now I think it's time I return the favor.
Yeah.
And then I think you'll come back on next week with Eddie, I think.
We had that planned out so I get a shout out to Around the 412, and I'm sure you guys know who they are. Smitty, he's been inspiring me because I think, and Jesse, you can attest for this, for a while there, the blogging community and stuff like that in Pittsburgh was kind of toxic. I remember, me and Penn's blog had a big blowout, and Madden was attacking blog. There was a lot of toxic stuff. And I think right now we're starting to see like, oh, you have content? Oh, I'm going to support that. You have content? I mean, as long as it's decent content, I'm not going to this guy wrote this blog that had grammatical errors and stuff like that. But like, if you have consistent, decent content, you're putting stuff out there, like, it's nice to see the community kind of going in a different direction. There's a Discord for like Pittsburgh sports creators that I joined with all those guys in there. So like that's a thing that I like to see.
It's definitely a much greener pasture, than it used to be.
There was a lot of gatekeeping.
And that's the thing, is like this is a big enough space. I mean, we're all gonna at some point or another step on each other's toes from a content perspective, because there's only so many players on the team. But there's no reason why we can't improve the discourse. Just iron sharpens iron, right? I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Well, I had Jordan on from Yinzers, that all female Steelers podcast, and I was telling her, I was like, the thing about Eddie and I is like, we knew, for one thing, when you're like, hey, I'm going to start doing a podcast again, or I'm going to start a website or this or that, you're going to have people like, oh yeah, real original and stuff like that. So my thing was, hey, let's try to do it a different way. Already we were like, we're just going to do like a bar. Like we want to do this like we're talking at the bar. We don't want to have like, we have Ed on the phone right now. Ed, what do you think about Ben? Like, we wanted to be like, no, let's shoot the shit and act like we're just talking and go about this different way. And also we were like, let's just talk sports. It's not going to be for everybody, but let's discuss inside linebacker depth and goalie save percentage and stuff like that. Not like, should Ben come back or shouldn't he come back Monday through Friday? Like, that's what we wanted to do. But also, when I listen to your podcast and go to this website, not that I'm like, oh, I want to do that, but I'm like, oh wow, man, I wish I would have thought of that. And then it gets me creative, and I'm messaging Eddie like, okay, maybe we should do this instead. So like, instead of being like, oh, I hate your podcast because it's better than mine, or you get more views, I'm like, how can we become as good as they are?
Hockey's weird, and I'm not saying that like football fans don't like football or baseball fans don't like baseball, but like, I feel like the way that hockey fans enjoy hockey is unique to almost every individual. And it's, if you just like hockey content and you like to spend your day, like I did, back in, the early 2000s, just consuming every morsel you could, it's a good time, I think, to be a Penguins fan. You got any number of places to get it from, and everybody's doing a good job.
I used to here's my mom thought I was like crazy, which I might be, but I used to have a notebook just full of stats. Like I would write down all the points leaders, plus minus, this and that, and I would literally have a notebook. And she was like, "What are you gonna do with that?" And I'm like, "Know it." That's it. That's all I got. And I know this guy scored. I know who won the Conn Smythe in 1992 and 1998, and that's what I'm bringing to the world right now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like when I first, like I think they had like an application. I'm like, I've never done a podcast before, but what the hell? I'm just a writer. Put my name in there. The guy actually gives me a call. He's like, yeah, you're actually one of my short lists for people that wanted to apply to this. I'm like, wow, really? I'm like, I've never done this before. Asked me a few questions. Like, yeah, I'll get back to you. I'm still going to talk to a couple other people who are on the short list. 2 days later, he's like, yeah, you got it. I'm like, wow, that was very unexpected. But it's just I've learned a lot along the way. I learned stuff from your podcast. I learned stuff from around the 412. I learned stuff from Yinsers. I mean, they got a freaking player on the first episode. I wish I could get a player on mine at some point. I hope so. But it's just, I love supporting everyone's content. And I think that's just what this community is here for in Pittsburgh, just building each other up, supporting everyone's work and everyone's episodes. And I have a lot of fun listening to yours. I have a lot of fun listening to so many others. I saw Jesse was on Dimitri's, I think last week it was. That was a great listen. It's just I love doing this, and I love supporting everyone that does it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Jesse and Hunter, you can get in this too. So I just saw something that caught my eye when we were on commercial break, and on your podcast, you said that Tom Barrasso is a no-brainer Hall of Famer. Explain.
Explain yourself.
Yeah, I mean it the reason he's not in it is just because that he's the basically the antithesis of Marc-Andre Fleury. Where like you think of Fleury in your head, you think of that smile and as like a jokester, prankster kind of guy. Tom Barrasso retired and like he went on and played elsewhere for a bit, signed a 1-day contract with the Penguins, and you never saw him again. Ever. No alumni events, not at the arena. That's the kind of guy he is. He wants to live that life, But go back and first of all, the retweet I think was from Pat Damp on Dying Alive, and Tom Barrasso is the most points of any goaltender in NHL history, with I think 49. But go if you consider the environment he played in,
it was not goalie friendly.
They did not play defense. They just flat out didn't. I think back, to Mario Lemieux, kind of getting hit over the head by Ron Francis, and Ron Francis kind of convincing Mario to having to play a trap against the Capitals in '92, and then they went to Scotty Bowman and had to convince Scotty Bowman to play the trap, and they kind of like the first time in the Lemieux era realized that if we don't try to play defense in this series, we're going to lose. And then after that, it was like we're right back to it, right back to the firework. So he was in the worst environment for a goaltender. Just put up disgusting numbers for how rough of a go he had it. He has the longevity, he has the points, he has the wins. He doesn't have the happy-go-lucky personality that's required to rub elbows with the people that vote you into the Hall of Fame. So to me, it's just it's a no-brainer, man. He's one of the best I mean, people can laugh at me. He's one of the best goalies of all time, and he's certainly one of the best American goalies of all time. If you look back at his career, how about this? Well, and I'll just spit these numbers at you.
Sure. Because that's why I'm looking at the numbers right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know you look at it, you think, oh, it's just not great.
I compare. So when I do, we're talking about anybody that played in the 80s. I'm not going to go all time because goalies that play nowadays there's not even, they're might as well be playing a different position. So I pulled up from 1984 to 1995 save percentage, and he has the same save percentage as Ron Hextall. I mean, so
thank you. Okay,
yeah,
right. And he faced more shots. So you know what I mean. They didn't even take the same test Ron Hextall did. Ron Hextall took an easier test. So anyway, that's
Hunter, I don't know if you agree. So
games.
The problem I have with these Hall of Fame discussions is, especially with goalies, and I know you guys are going to know where I'm going with this, but I loathe I loathe the win/cup.
The win stat. Yeah. I knew you were going there with that one. I think a lot of people do. I look at the numbers here, 84 to 95. His best save percentage is 900 exactly, 901 actually. I know, hockey's a lot different back then.
Yeah, nobody was like 905 was like the good
High
then.
league average.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. Way before my time, obviously. But yeah, I mean, 901. I mean, a lot of 870s too, 880s. I mean, one of the years, though, I think it was his second year in the league, he had 5 shutouts. So that's not bad. That's actually pretty good, probably for the time. I just I never got to watch a lot of him. Is my big problem. It's kind of before my time. I personally wouldn't have him in the Hall of Fame. It might be a hot take. I'd probably put Marc-Andre Fleury in the Hall of Fame over him, and I don't even know if Fleury.
I was gonna say I'll make everybody mad at me right now because you know how I feel.
Oh boy.
Chad, is Marc-Andre Fleury a Hall of Famer to you?
No, I don't. No,
yeah, there
no.
it is. Yeah.
I would never. I would vote for him to be removed from the ballot. He has never, ever, not even in a single. Maybe this year. This might be the first year ever that he's actually been like a top 3 goalie in the league. He's never been nominated for a Vezina. His playoff numbers are atrocious. Compare him.
Oh, by the way, hold on a second. Hold
Sure.
on. Before I need to cut you off, could I mention the fact that Tom Barrasso won the Vezina and the Calder in his first season?
Yeah, no,
It's the only time anyone has ever done that.
I think Barrasso was better than Fleury, and I think Barrasso's the best goaltender in Penn's history, and I would probably vote for Barrasso over Fleury.
Yeah. I'm on the opposite of that, obviously, just because I watched Fleury growing up and all that. But I think his 2017-18 season, Flowers, of course, 927 with Vegas. That I think was his second best season overall in the league.
He was good that year.
Yeah, and then his third best one, that also came during his best playoff run ever, 2007-8, 921, that regular season. Basically tried to carry the Penguins to a 7th game against Detroit, along with young Sid and Gino. But people like to say that he was so good in that 09 run. Really wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
Made that, obviously, that great save on Lidstrom at the end. Everyone will remember that forever. But also the save on Ovechkin in Game 7. Of course, people remember that. But, you remember that the work from the rest of that playoff run, he didn't really have to do a lot just because Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby went on heaters.
Bro, it was Crosby and Malkin both had like all-time great playoff runs. Like they could have had me in net and they would have probably at least beat Carolina.
Right.
I don't think
I would not put any Marc-Andre Fleury anywhere near the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Here's what I'll say. So let's look at the last 15 years. Do you think Fleury is like a top 6 goalie the last 2 decades?
No. Based on what, Chad? Based on performance?
Right. Based on results. Yeah.
No, not at all. No.
It's like,
I don't have him.
Wait, what was the year? How many
he has
years
3 cups.
How many years? What did you? So let's think about this, though.
Yeah, top six goaltenders the last 2 decades since 2000. Yeah.
Let me give you some reality.
Okay.
About Marc-Andre Fleury.
Oh, by the way, as big as I'm hating on him right now, he is. I mean, this is probably his best season. He's playing insane.
No, I don't want to make it sound like I'm hating. Like I'm just, he is what he is. Like
right.
If you're gonna look at goalies, take save, and we can't do this for Tom Barrasso because the data that we're about to discuss didn't even exist in 1992. But I mentioned earlier a very important thing is that all goalies take a different test. Right. Defensive environment's different, et cetera, et cetera. You don't take a kid with a math test and a kid with a history test and sit them and compare the score. That's stupid, right? So we could take scoring chances, shot quality, expected goals, and create an expectation of what a save percentage should have been,
right,
given the environment, right? So we grade the goalie in their own ecosystem, right? That's where Marc-Andre Fleury is most trash. Right. Like that's really honest to goodness. Like, and like even in like 2015, 2016 for the Penguins, he was the 16th best goalie in the league that year by goals saved above average or expected. Goals saved above expected. 16th best goalie in the league. So not even top 6 there. Last year, 23rd, 2019, 17th, 2014, 28th. Like, you're not talking about a guy who traditionally lives in the top half of the National Hockey League, judging him by his environment, right? Now, you throughout that and out looking at his career, Chad, you have these pockets, and that's what they are, pockets of exceptional playoff success.
Oh, when he was on?
But you don't get in the Hall of Fame on that.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't get in the Hall of Fame because you were pretty good in the playoffs a couple times.
My whole thing is Chris Osgood a Hall of Famer goal? Is he a goal? You know, one of the best goalies ever?
No.
He's in the top 10 in wins, and he has multiple cups.
Yeah.
All I remember from Chris Osgood is that angle that he had on Max Talbot in 2009 that made him look like a freaking baby in net.
Bro, Corey Crawford has almost 300 wins and won 2 cups as a starter. Is he a Hall of Famer? Is he better than?
He's probably the most.
He might be underrated, but is he better than Henrik Lundqvist, who has no cups? Like,
I would argue that Henrik Lundqvist is honestly a top 5 goalie of all time with how good he was.
I think he's the best goalie of his era, and he's probably the best goalie since Hasek and Waugh retired.
I don't know, Chad. Is he in Brodeur's era?
I wouldn't consider him in the same era. No.
And they played against each other for a little bit, but that was like
a little bit. That was probably
at the end of Brodeur.
Oh, I'll give you guys. We can move on from goalies in a little bit, but I'll give you a hot take here. I think Brodeur is a tad overrated.
He's a 100%. People will say Marty.
Oh no, Hunter shares that same view.
People will say that Marty Brodeur is the greatest goalie of all time. It is like,
if your answer
die. Did Patrick Waugh or Dominic Hasek die or something like that?
If your answer is not Dominic Hasek, I don't want to hear it.
It's the answer, 100%. Yeah. Dominic Hasek's the answer.
But he didn't win any cups. He only won one cup.
I've died on the hill
Marino argument.
For Raw forever. What? I have Hasek as a 1B with him. It's just it's so close for me. I love both of them, but
when are people going to stop judging individual talents based on team accomplishments? Like, I don't know when that became a thing, and like it's so easily debunked because Dan Marino's a perfect example.
It's the old wins with goaltending thing. It's the lack of.
I hate it with wins with pitchers too. You could pitch your ass off and get no run support and lose.
Yeah. We were talking about. Oh, you know what? I'll forever be bitter about, and what will piss me off to the end of my life. And I'll be on my deathbed. This will be the last thing I'll say before I die. Should have been Penguins Ave as a 96.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine?
Bro, I cried. I cried to my mom. Yay, fair.
That was that stupid series.
Tom Van Breen, Brooks, Scott Mellenby. Oh my God.
I sadly watched the highlights.
Swept the shit out of them too, man.
Pens Avs has been like my dream cup matchup because like the Avs the Avs are my mistress team. Like sometimes people don't know, like they think, oh, Chad, he's Pens. I'll go on NHL and I'll start a franchise with Colorado. That's like they're like my mistress team.
That was really though, I think like for me that 96 because I would have been, I was like that was really the first series I remember.
Yeah, no, I mean, actually
stuck with me for a long time, and the Rats, I'll just never forget that.
Yeah, no,
but I'll never forget the Rats.
The first playoff experience I remember was Claude Lemieux scarred me forever because I felt like he scored 1,000 goals when they lost to the Devils. I think it was the year before.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was like when I became like, okay, now I know what I'm watching because I watched when I don't really remember, but yeah, Claude Lemieux made me cry pretty good too. But that Florida team that gave me PTSD. I literally I'm telling you, I bawled. I was bawling to my mom like, she's like, you're crying over it.
The trap was just the one I know I first remember. I do remember watching that first one when Crosby and Malkin made it in 07 and Daniel Alfredson, they just dumped on them like it was no tomorrow. I was like,
they had no idea what the hell was going on.
They were so good in that regular season, and I was only like 9 or 10 at the time. But I just remember watching the games with my mom and all that because she would watch every game. And I turned on game one, all this. I was like, "Is this what the playoffs are supposed to be?"
Welcome to the playoffs, bitch.
Yeah.
Daniel Alfredson, Jason Spezza, they just took a giant
Danny
dump
Heatley
on two of the best players to ever play the game.
So funny story about that.
Heatley.
That game one when they got trounced, I was down. There was still a Damon's at the waterfront,
No
and we
shit,
were on
yeah.
we were on the news, and we were like, "Let's go, Penn!" We were on, and like then like they were like the news segment was so hilarious because they were like everybody's hyped, and then they were like until after the first period, and everybody was like,
You know what though? That what still pisses me off about that first game to this day is that they had the audacity to rule that goal as a distinct kicking motion.
"No,
And
yeah."
Crosby's leg was underneath him, and it sprung out because somebody
that's
laid on
right.
top of him, and his leg just sort of went bloop, and they said, well, he distinctively kicked the puck, and I still can't believe that's one of the worst kicking calls I've ever seen in my life.
You know what?
And I remember they won game 2 of that series though.
Yeah.
They evened it
That's
up
right.
in Ottawa.
Yeah, they did.
And it was a Saturday afternoon game in the middle of the afternoon. I only remember that because it was the opening day of trout season. I was blackout drunk, and then I was just fishing all day long. But then after that, they just got walked. And then the following year was when Gary
dumped
Roberts
on
tried
them.
to fight.
Gary, oh my God.
Yeah, he tried to fight the entire team.
That's right.
And
Didn't
Bob
Ryan
Berry was
Whitney? I think
screaming.
Ryan Whitney beat the shit out of somebody too.
Yeah, Brian Whitney fought
Oh my God, I might have to.
was it Chris Phillips
it,
or Wade
Chris
Redden?
Phillips,
Wade
yeah,
Redden.
I mean,
No, it was
I
Wade
was
Redden.
like, where did that
Yeah.
come from? He was giving him bombs.
No, it was Wade. He was feeding Wade Redden, dude.
And
And you have to understand, like,
just dumped on them.
Here's a little tip. Ryan Whitney is probably going to listen to this. Like, would never come on Chad's show because we had Marshall on. He was trashing me. But, like, you have to remember, though, like, Ryan Whitney at that time, the reason him just feeding Wade Redden was such a big deal was because, like, he had, like, a reputation for being kind of soft at that point. Like,
Yeah.
To be honest with you, like, that was his reputation.
That's why I was like, what the hell? Where did that come from?
Yeah, but he just beat the snot out of him, man. I'll never forget that.
That's what's so cool about the Crosby Malkin era was two things. Was one, when Crosby came, I mean, listen, I don't care about bandwagon fans because the more people that like hockey, the better to me. But we have to acknowledge that like a lot of people were like, I like hockey now. They were like, yeah, I'm a Pens fan, and that's how I'll be like, oh, well, name the 3 starters from 2004. And it's like, bro, I was a Pens fan, and I want to forget that shit. I don't even want to remember it.
I'll never disparage anybody for anything when they joined, when they started watching. It doesn't make a difference to me. Everybody can enjoy it. All I'm saying is this: if you were around in 2002, it meant something different to you.
And especially
it just did. It just
the progression was so crazy. They were so bad. They almost left. Then it's like, okay, now Crosby's here, but it wasn't like everything's great now because they were shit Crosby's rookie year.
Ziggy Palffy retired in the middle of the season.
I remember Sports Illustrated picked them to win the Stanley Cup. Yeah. Crosby's rookie year because they went out and got John LeClair and like all these big names, and then they were like, "Oh, this team sucks."
Yeah.
And then you go the next year, and then it's like, okay, they added a couple more things, and Sid was, I mean, that 2007 season, he was just insane. He had 120 points with Colby Armstrong on his line. Like, I don't think people understand the significance of that. No offense, Colby, but
no, none. Yeah.
And then but then they get trounced in the playoffs. But it was like, okay, so baby step. Then they lose in the Cup final, which. Man, every time I go back and watch that play where Hossa is right at the end, I'm like, I never realized like how close he came to scoring that. Like
it was about a millimeter. It was so I can't. I watched that so many times, and I think it's gonna go in and they go to overtime.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't. That run was just so fun, though, right?
It was so fun.
It was their first big one. I will always say this. I say this on my Twitter all the time. That Gino goal against the Flyers, that big fuck you goal right to Mike Richards' face. Basically almost pointed at him. It's just
one of the loudest nights. Veins. Yeah, I mean that was probably the loudest I'd ever heard the Melon when he scored that goal. Yeah. That and the other one for me. See if you guys remember this one. That place popped when Miroslav Shatan came out of the penalty box.
Yes.
Okay,
Carolina. Game 1 Carolina.
Scored that shorthanded goal out of the penalty box. That place went absolutely batshit because you knew at that point. It was over, right? It was over.
Yeah.
My
buddy. Yeah, go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say about that run, the one that they lost, was I'll still go back sometimes and watch some of those Rangers games.
Oh yeah.
That was Yager at his finest.
Yeah.
He was just so difficult to handle back then. Hossa was out of his mind.
I'll die on the hill that, man, I think Hossa was if there was, and there might have been a couple other guys. I mean, obviously, like Ovechkin and a couple other guys, but man, I don't like. You got to realize when they got Hossa, like they didn't like everything didn't mesh. They had no time, and when they got to the playoffs, it was like, has Crosby and Hossa been playing together their whole? It was crazy.
Yeah,
he's one of the most perfect wingers
Chad.
for Crosby ever.
He turned his knee against the Rangers.
Yeah,
in fact,
that's right. Yeah,
like a game or two into his career here.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. That series was fun. I remember that first I think it was the game 1. They had that 3-0 comeback, and that place popped when Rutsu scored, made it 3-1, I think, and then they had another one 10 seconds later. That comeback was just so awesome. And then I think I had a couple buddies at that Letang game winner in 09. They say that's the loudest they've ever heard the Igloo was when it basically when he scored the.
You guys want to know a story?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that was obviously a long time ago, and I wasn't like, professional at this, but not that I am now either, to be honest. But I got tickets to the game that night, the Caps game. Nobody believes me when I tell this story, man. I
down 0-2.
and it's like, and no, I haven't even gotten to the good part yet, Hunter. But like, I'm telling you now, there's pictures on my phone that'll verify everything I'm about to tell you is true.
Yeah, we're gonna do a full investigation.
Yeah. You guys remember the You're the Man Now dog website with the chunkier Caps kid?
Yeah.
I was right in front of him.
I do.
He sat right behind us for that game.
Oh shit!
And I'm gonna tell you right now, like that was the most annoying crew Washington people that I had ever sat behind in my entire life. And when that kid became a meme, like it brought everyone that sat in that section that night so much joy. Because even when Letang scored that game winner, you were on your way out, they were still talking to each other, saying like, you could tell that they didn't watch hockey. And again, this sounds like so chauvinistic.
Well, Caps are the same thing. Where
they were like, nobody comes back from 2-0 deficits in hockey. And
he's the guy with the meme, right? With
sad face. Yeah.
That's the guy, right? Okay, I was just making sure I got the right guy. He's the one with like
if you Google sad Caps fan, he comes right up.
Sat right in front of
you. That's hilarious that you said it. You just
absolutely the most obnoxious, just horrible. At the height of the Ovechkin, I've been a lot of places to watch the Penguins, both as like a writer and a fan. And I'll tell you right now, there's no place that's worse than Washington for a Penguin.
Okay, yes. For
I don't
all
think
the listeners
Philly's
out
worth.
there,
I don't think Philly's worth.
I agree with you. I am in Capitals country. I have lived in Capitals country since I was about 5. I've been to games at I don't even know what it's called now. It used to be called the Verizon Center.
I think it's the Capital One Center now, right?
Capital One Arena.
Yeah.
I've been there for a few Caps Pens games. There are some people there that it's vicious. They will say some stuff and it's like, whoa, like you guys gotta. There's a lot of people there that do not know what they're talking about when it comes to the sport. It's like that everywhere, but I think especially in DC, growing up here, there are a lot of fans in this area that are just really stupid when it comes to the sport, and they'll just say, "Well, I mean," and they treat
a lot of like unnecessary aggression was what I found. Like even as like as a writer, I feel like I've it's not like I've never like seen an altercation. It's never been bad. Like,
not me.
But I mean, in terms of like if you wear the jersey there as a fan, I feel like it's tougher on you in Washington than it is in Philadelphia right now, as it is today. Stan Savran. What year were you born?
I consider the Caps a bigger rival. Like that's the funny thing about that. Like
they are, and the Capitals fans. I was born in '97, but the Capitals fans, they think the Penguins are their number one rival. So of course they're just going to be.
It is.
But like, you got to think though. Like I was just going to say that because that's why I asked when you were born. Because Stan Savran. I don't know why I remember this, Chad. And I think it might have been in '96 or '97. Might have been in 2000 as well, but. Anyway, Stan Savran used to have this saying, and I don't remember it verbatim, but it was something you'd yell out at a craps table. And it was about the Penguins and the Capitals in the playoffs because you remember when the Lemieux first got in '89, they had an 11-year run, '89 to 2000, where they made the playoffs 11 years in a row. 7 of those 11 years they beat Washington.
Yeah. One of the most underrated plays is that Martin Straka goal in 2001
against Sergei Gonchar.
He takes the puck. It's such a cool goal. He takes the puck and goes like inside out on a D-man and scores. And I was like, oh, I love hockey. I was like, this is awesome.
So you had like that historical history of Lemieux just torturing them
Oh yeah,
for all 11 years. And then
Jim Carrey is the only thing that ever stopped them from not getting
they beat them once.
swept.
Yep. The Capitals beat them one time.
Yeah.
And then they went on to the Stanley Cup Finals and got swept by the Red Wings. So a lot of good it did them. And then, so think about this if you're a Caps fan that was born in like 83. Let's say you're in your mid 30s, you're a Caps fan. You watch the Penguins beat you almost every year your team made the playoffs. Then you get Ovechkin, your fortune's going to change, right? 2009 rolls around, and then boom, it happens again. Then you escape it for a couple years. You come back to it in 2016, boom, it happens again. 2017, boom, it happens again. Like, that's why for me, like, I'll never disparage a Caps fan for gloating about 2018.
No.
Oh yeah,
they earned it.
It happened. Yeah, it happens.
Monkey off the back.
Yeah, like good for you. Like you earned that. Like when people like, and I was like, this is like a generational thing that I think like gets missed between like certain generations of Penn fans. When I was a kid, Chad, is probably true for you too. And I was growing up, there was a concrete wall in my neighborhood. We put garbage cans up and like draw goals if you didn't have goals, and we played like hockey against the wall. We pretend like somebody had to be the Caps.
Yeah.
The Caps were always the team you played against, and like one garbage can would be Chris Simon, the other one would be, Steve Konowalchuk, and then the other one would be, Kalle Johansson, and that was like every year. But like that was the same every year in springtime. You knew, like I had visions of that just ugly Eagle jersey in my head because you knew that you were going to play in the first or second round, and it was just that was my favorite thing as a kid. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I loathed Penn's Flyers because I grew up with as a part of the winless streak in the Spectrum.
I mean, I know so many great Caps fans. Like, I actually have a group chat with like some of my best friends from college who actually know what they're talking about. We give each other shit all the time. But other than that, I think part of them are just like, you said it best. They're never going to stop gloating about that one year. They got their cup. Some of those friends, even in our group chat, think that now, they basically say we got our cup. When he leaves, he's going to leave, and that's just going to be that. But go ahead with what you were going to say.
I was going to say it worked the opposite way. Like how you were saying, Hunter, like Caps fans, thought of the Penguins as their biggest rival, but the Penguins didn't really view them that way. The Penguins view the Flyers as their biggest rival, and it was the same thing. They had lost 42 games in a row at the Spectrum from 74 to 89. They just didn't win there. And you want a good story one day, get a hold of Tab Douglas on Twitter and ask Tab to tell you the story about the voodoo ceremony and how they broke their streak. Jim Krenn and all the guys from DVE did their show remotely from Philadelphia for a regular season game against the Flyers. They did the show remotely in Philadelphia, dressed up like witch doctors. And then Tab Douglas asked everybody in Pittsburgh to mail in their good luck charms.
Wow.
So they're just getting boxes of shit mailed to them. Rabbits' feet, dollar bills. Penguins put all this stuff in the locker room for practice. Skated with stuff in their pants. Zarly Zalapsky had rabbit's foot in his pants for the game. They ended up winning. They broke the streak. DV did a remote show. Tab Douglas collected all the good luck charms, so they set them up all over the locker room, and they ended up busting it, and they like all the lengths that they had to go through, to quote unquote do it, or to appease the hockey gods, which is crazy.
I think they need to do that. I want to transition that into this current team. I mean, I could sit here and talk to you guys about the old stuff because that's what I really love, and I kind of want to go back. I'll probably, when we get done here, I'm probably going to go on YouTube and watch some old highlights because that's what I do. But I don't know about you guys. I can't make sense of this Penguins team. Like, they don't make sense to me. We've had Penguins teams where like you knew like, okay, they don't do this well, but they do this well, and that's kind of what we expect. But like every game I go in and I'm looking at the metrics and I'm watching them play, and it's almost like I get something different every time. Like,
I think it's weird. You just hit the nail on the head. And speaking of, this tonight's Penguins, Sidney Crosby is back tonight, guys.
Oh, wait a minute, he is? I thought I saw that he wasn't. Okay.
He just got activated. Todd Reardon's activated, so they're back tonight.
Squatted the rest, yep.
Yeah, I think they called him up. Yeah, but I agree. This team is weird. You know, the 5-on-5 metrics are kind of like in the middle of the road, right? They're not like that bad, but they're not normally as good as they usually are. The goaltending has finally come around. Tristan Jarry is on a heater like we saw last season.
Yeah,
he's 930 through these last 8 games. I mean, I think he had 16 games in a row last year where he was, I think overall his cumulative save percentage was 928, if I remember correctly. He's really turned it around, but I will never understand, you know, I think Adam Gretz said this on Twitter. Great follow, by the way. You cannot win games with decent 5-on-5 metrics and really elite goaltending, but your special teams are such trash. And Jesse, I was going to throw this to you. What is going on with their penalty kill this year? Because it's the same personnel. I know the coach changed, but like it really shouldn't have to change that much from coach to coach, should it? Like what I've noticed is they're not blocking as many shots. They're not getting their sticks in passing lanes. They're letting Anders Lee or whoever just hang out in front of the net with no one making them pay the price.
Yep.
And they're just not nearly aggressive enough. And it's just 72% bottom 4 in the league. It is killing them. I just don't get it. What's going on with that and their power play too. But I just want to ask you about the penalty kill.
Yeah. So it's different. It's definitely not the same as it was before. What this is called is like a wedge +1 type of an approach. So basically think of it as the wedge +1 tries to take away like the most the dangerous scoring area, which is the slot, right? So what they'll do is they'll take like a triangle, right? And they'll put that in the center of the ice. And then they just have one player who's the wedge. And his job is to just wreak havoc, just create hell, pressure everybody that has the puck, and wedge the puck off the stick of whoever has it, right?
So Brandon Tanev.
But that person will change, right? Because if it's on the left side of the ice, you have a forward branch out there. If it's on the right side, the other forward will go, and the other one will come back, right? So it's kind of like a slinky in that sense, right? It's going to depend on where the strong side is, and et cetera, et cetera. But I cut a screen cap of one of the goals they allowed against the Islanders, that real stinker game they had against the Islanders the other night, where all 4 players were standing in a straight line in front of Tristan Jarry, one 5 feet away from the next one. And I was like thinking to myself, like the Islanders run an umbrella power play so that they want to get the puck to the wing and one-time it. And it was almost like the Penguins weren't even remotely interested in trying to cover that. So when here's the thing. When it goes bad, they just aren't in position. Nobody's on the same page. Both the power play goals the Islanders scored that night, you had one obviously that was comical because nobody was where they were supposed to be, but then the second one was equally as comical because they just worked it right in the middle of that triangle. Right. That was it. Like you didn't defend anything. So, I think the number one culprit for me, guys, is just puck watching. And it's almost like everybody's waiting for somebody else to be the person that's going to do something. And if you have a puck that shoots out, you have an opportunity to be the guy, to be the wedge, right? And to get up there and attack. And you have the 2 players looking at each other like, which one of us is going to do this, right? So it's indecisiveness, it's a lack of aggression. And I think the big one is just that passiveness and puck watching when guys aren't really where they're supposed to be.
Where does the blame, like the problem I have with when Eddie and I talk about this all the time with it's hard to analyze coaches, right? Like it's hard to we don't know what the coaches are saying, what they're teaching. You don't know if they're telling the players to do something and the players aren't doing it. You really don't have that knowledge. But at what point do you go, okay, they changed the personnel, they did this, they did that, they're receiving this result. So where are you guys at with okay, how much blame goes on the players and how much blame, and the same thing with the power play too, because the power play you have Crosby, Malkin, Letang, blah, blah. Well, okay, I heard Sullivan say a quote the other day where, we kind of let those guys, they know they're doing what they want to do. Well, it's like, well, you're the coach, so tell them to not do that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I've been in a hockey locker room, and I'm like, okay, if something's not working, we're now getting into the point where we're almost getting to the halfway point of the season. Make personnel changes, change your structure, change your approach. you might have a great system, but maybe the players just aren't responding to it well. You can do things to adjust to that.
What I'm about to tell you, I acknowledge is kind of rare in the sense that it doesn't happen a lot. All right.
Okay.
So like, bear with me in that I'm complaining about something that is already rare. Okay. Like, I think back to 2016, right? Tampa, specifically playoffs.
Okay.
And I remember the Penguins just getting murdered in those first few games on their breakouts. Tampa was super aggressive with them. It wasn't working. And like, hockey is very much a stagnant sport. And what I mean by that is, like, in football, you can go in the locker room at halftime and say, we're not running the ball well enough. We're going to run the ball. Right.
Big movie type speech. Everybody's getting amped up.
Exactly. Yep. Like, basketball, you could drop these pick and roll plays, like these, little one-off. Hockey, you don't just change the system.
Right.
You just don't do it. Nobody in the NHL does it.
You'll see it. You'll be like, Sullivan's not making adjustments.
But I mentioned that Tampa series because he did it.
Right.
Like, he actually did it, and he changed the breakout, and he said, we can't beat Tampa like this. We have to completely throw what we're doing out in the garbage and start all over again.
Right.
I feel like we saw that to a certain extent the following year against the Capitals, especially, given the circumstances they were in at the time, maybe to some extent too against Nashville in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
But I don't think
they kind of had to. But
I don't think we've seen it since. So I don't know what it is about Mike Sullivan that has got him, like, to the point where he's got the yips about, like, not doing this stuff, like, he's got these hiccups that all of a sudden now, like, you don't see him throwing the wrenches that he used to throw. And it seems like now he relies more on just simple lineup changes, which aren't really solving any of the problems.
Yeah. Maybe he trusts Ty Reardon a bit more because he used to run a good power play in Washington. They have that play. I think it's for the zone entry. It's that type of pass that it starts with like a sky something, or I can't remember what it's actually called. But like, it almost never works with the current power play. And, I think mostly what it's been this year is just a momentum swinger for the other team, right? It's just that you get in, you have a little bit of zone time, you pass the puck about 10, 11 times, and then you don't get any good quality scoring chances. Yep. And it just seems like they haven't really done much to fix that. Jesse, I think you had your piece a couple of weeks ago saying, like, you basically need 2 to 3, maybe 4 passes before a good quality scoring chance. They're not even really getting that.
Not even that, Hunter, just a shot.
Yeah.
Just one shot. I don't even have to be a high quality chance. But like, if you're making more than 4 passes before you put a puck on net, there are a lot of coaches I talked to were like, we really try to limit it to that. And then you watch the Penguins some nights, like 8, 9, 10, 11.
They're 14, trying to find that perfect play.
60, 89. Like, it's all outside. It's all at the perimeter. And I think even at even strength, like the Malkin line, hasn't penetrated the middle of the ice enough. It hasn't gotten enough chances from the slot. It hasn't generated enough shots from the slot. They get bullied to the outside of the ice. Yeah. Which goes back to what Chad said at the beginning. They don't have a personality as a team. What is their personality?
No, I can't make sense of it. We've seen Penn's teams that had a distinct personality. You knew what, even if they were going to win, whether they were going to win or lose, you kind of knew, like, hey, this is what they're going to bring tonight.
This is the roadmap. This is what the roadmap looks like. The roadmap now is almost like every night it's different almost. You get the sense that they just, the way they looked against Philadelphia was completely different than the way that they looked against the Islanders round 2, which was completely looked different than how they'd closed out against the Capitals, which was completely, it's just, so it's and I think that's what Mike Sullivan, what drove him to have sort of like his, sort of
his Tortorella moment. Kind of.
Yeah. The other night was just like, we're having the same conversations over and over again, which leads us to the question that nobody wants to answer or discuss. And this is the elephant in the room. Look, here's the reality, guys. And I'll ask both of you this question. Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, for the duration of their career, have had a short shelf life for coaches. Are we there?
Yeah. So I'm not going to blame, and I'm not going to just say with Crosby and Malkin. I've always said that, again, even if you play deck hockey, right? Like, there's only so many, like you said, there's only so many times we can have the same conversation I think Mike Sullivan's a fantastic hockey coach, and I think that if he ever did move on, he'd probably rightfully so get picked up right away. I would honestly probably, I'm sure he will be, or I don't know if it's been announced, but I would consider him being the coach for the U.S. Olympic team, right? That's who I would.
I think so. Yeah. I think
he's that good, but just knowing how those hockey locker rooms work, it's like, here comes Sullivan. Hey, we needed, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's not fucking work. It's not. Sometimes there just comes a time where it's like, you just need a new voice and a new vision. And I said that about the GM and everything. It probably came a year too late. If we're all being honest, they needed I think Sullivan's already outlasted most coaches like that. What he, and he's won 2 cups and it was great, but it's going this way. It's been going this way for a while. So sometimes it might just be best to hey, thank you very much. We'll always remember this, but we're going to go in a different direction. And that's not an indictment on Sullivan, really. That's kind of the reality of the sport of hockey.
Yeah. Lindy Ruff is the exception to the rule, right? Guys like him that last in one job for,
right.
He's in Buffalo for half my life. Mike Babcock in Detroit, these are the exception to the rule of, no one's exempt. I mean, look at Vegas last year. Look at what they
and that was probably the wrong.
That was ridiculous. Yeah, and I think Sullivan is actually the 3rd longest tenured coach right now.
That's crazy. That right there shows you that he is.
It's John Cooper. Paul Maurice has been in Winnipeg since 2014.
That's why? What the hell has he done?
Some way, he has not done a thing. Kevin Shovel-Dayoff is just passive as hell. And then it's Mike Sullivan. And, I love Sully. I think he's a top 5 coach in hockey. He will have a job in 5 minutes if he's fired, 100%. My biggest thing with him is, who do you replace him with? Gerard Gallant is obviously awesome. I would probably pick him up. He would be my first choice. People are clamoring, well, the Penguins could hire Bruce Boudreau and all this. And it's like, no, I honestly.
But here's the thing about that, Hunter.
Yeah, go ahead.
When people ask that question, same thing with any other coach or who are you going to replace him with? I throw it right back at them. Did you know who Mike Sullivan was? And I'm sure you guys did, but 90% of the Pens fans, did they honestly know who Mike Sullivan was before he got?
No, he was just the AHL guy. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah,
so there are coaches out there that are they're probably deserving a chance, and it's not going to fix everything. But if they continue to just be this mad team, which is how I would describe them right now, that's the mad Penguins. Some nights they're gonna be but for the most, even I gotta be honest, this is probably one of the most boring Pens teams I've watched. They're boring.
It's just
it pains me to say that because I love hockey and I love the Penguins, but I don't feel excited when I watch these games.
The nights that it's not there at all. It's badly not there.
Yeah,
some of those
stale.
And it's I'd rather them be exciting and have these back and forth games, and even if they lose, I wouldn't care. It's oh yeah, we're gonna lose this 3-0 slugfest. It's okay.
Yeah, and it's why I think that they need to make some. I think more than anything, if they do have a bad year here and they say they don't make the playoffs, which is a very real possibility, I think Penguins fans need to realize this. It's a 5-team race for get in. They could very well fire Mike Sullivan. Ron Hextall barely knows him that well. He may want his own coach.
Connection. Yep.
Maybe he has no connection to him, so he may want to say, "Hey, Mike, I enjoyed working with you this year. I want to hire my own guy. Thank you for the 2 cups," and then they go their separate ways. But I think for this year, what they're going to do with the management team, they're going to try to win with him and try to make some upgrades. And I think one of them should be a top 6 winger or just move Kapanen down the lineup. I have my eye on Rickard Rakell. I know a lot of others do because Anaheim is a joke right now. They've lost 8 in a row, and someone needs to go rescue poor old friend John Gibson because he is just that man. He is struggling there right now.
Save John Gibson.
It's hashtag save John Gibson. But I think
somebody
that's
queue up the Sarah McLachlan commercial in the arms of an angel.
Exactly. But I think that's the most likely scenario. If they do flame out, though, and say they lose in an embarrassing fashion again in the playoffs, which is a very real possibility. They've done it 2 years in a row. I could see Ron and Brian saying, hey, you know what? We appreciate what you did here. Thank you for the 2 cups, but, we're going to go in a different direction. And, Gerard Gallant's right there for the taking if you want to have him. He's a great coach.
Last thing for me, and I'll give it to you guys to close the show out. So here's where I'm at with this team, right? I think my prediction with Hextall, and I went through. We had Mikey from Flyers Land. We actually had a Flyers blogger on the podcast because I wanted to see what they felt about Hextall, and he was like, "All right, here's what I'm gonna tell you. One thing about Hextall is." He loves getting draft picks. Like in the draft, he was like, expect him to be very active. He'll probably trade a player or two. I think it's the right time to have a guy like that because I think he can kind of just stand packed with the team for a while and to see if they get, guys are going to come back from injury and stuff like that. Let's see if things go. I, for the first time, am advocating and I predict that this team might actually be a seller at the deadline, even if they're a couple points out of the playoffs or right there. I expect Hextall to actually trade away guys and try to get cap space and draft picks and maybe some prospects in return, and still say, hey, we still might make the playoffs, but we're gonna get some salary, get some draft picks because this offseason I'm preparing to do like a rebuild on the fly or an overhaul on the fly.
I don't think I'd rule it out, Chad. Maybe not a complete fire sale per se, right? But some of the older assets, right, that they have, like
maybe Mark Jankowski.
Yeah. Well, we talked about Dumoulin.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even a Letang. You never know. Who knows?
It's funny because Letang just started turning around his play. Like now he's starting to, he's not the Letang from 2016, but he's showing life. But
we all, I mean, anybody that has watched hockey to some extent in their life probably could have pieced together that Chris Letang was going to figure things out.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, except for one person. But
you know who you are, damn it.
Yeah.
No, so I told Eddie this. This is the first time ever that I was like, you know what? If they traded Chris Letang and they get back like a second round pick and a prospect, I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't blame them.
Yeah, I think I realized this a couple of weeks ago on my podcast. This offseason, it's the first actual reality that Chris Letang may actually get traded. And I actually have come to grips with it just because his contract's up in a year, same as Gino. He's probably going to retire here over Letang. Yeah. And I would not be surprised if Hextall and Burke are he's getting a bit older now. We're going to try to do a retool on the fly. Would not surprise me if they decided to trade him. I personally wouldn't do it, but I would be like, you know what? I understand it just because the team's getting older. As for your selling thing, I wouldn't rule it out. I still think they're probably going to be more of a buyer. I mean, we have to remember this team has not played the terrible Buffalo Sabres yet, who are just
and New Jersey.
I don't even know. New Jersey.
I also don't want to bank on those being wins because the Penguins just have a tendency
we don't need them to go full games. I don't know against some bad teams.
Yeah.
What do you think the reaction would be if they were more of a seller? Do you think that? Do you think? I guess it's a stupid question, but do you think fans would be rational about that?
I think it depends on how Ron spins it. If he does it,
yeah.
What does Ron say? Is he? I think that because let's be honest here. If they made that trade, they're probably going to get back at least one piece that impacts the roster as it presently stands, right?
Oh yeah.
So I think if you can get the buy-in to people that you're trying to make the team better and plan for, keeping the window open as long as possible, I think you could get the buy-in from people on that. It's just a sales job at that point,
Yeah.
How well can you sell it?
Yeah, I think the big thing with how he had to sell it, are you going to be like the New York Rangers with the statement that they released? Hey, we know what we're doing right now. We're going into a retool. We're going to sell off our assets like Rick Nash and a couple others. We're going to collect some picks. you know, we kind of got lucky with getting Panarin and Adam Fox coming to our team, but that's what we're going to do. And they stuck to it, and they're going to be a force, I think, in a few years once they get some more pieces. I think that's the big way that Ron would have to do it. Though if they're going to sell, I can't see him trading like a big piece. I think it would be just like kind of depth pieces out, like I said, like a Jankowski. Maybe you get someone to take Colton Sevier, Marcus Pettersson. Maybe, I mean, that would honestly be a package. If you want to go out and get a winger with a surplus on D, if they want to buy, I think Pettersson's on his way out. I mean, if you want,
Jesse said that earlier too. Yeah.
If you want Joseph in the lineup full time, which every indication that he is going to be in the lineup at some point, he just needs a rest right now. He is the guy to probably trade. And you can, I've seen people link Kyle Palmieri to Pittsburgh. Nice rental right there. I think he makes not even $5 million for the rest of the season.
Richard Raquel is another guy that intrigues me too.
That's what he was saying earlier.
I know his shooting percentage is a bit low this year, but the Ducks are not good. Yeah, the Ducks
buy low.
So
buy low, yeah.
Nashville's in a fire sale. You could probably some good. There's Granlund, I think, is there. You want to try to play. You want to go a bold take here. Go get Philip Forsberg. That would be fun. But it would probably
should have drafted him in the damn first place, is what you should have done instead of taking Derek Poliot's ass.
Well, listen.
Is it Poliot? Was that right? Is it Poliot?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah,
I think it was. Yeah.
We went a little long. I appreciate you guys coming on the podcast. It means the world to me. Hunter, where can everybody find you at on your social media, and where can they find your work at?
So, yeah, I do stuff for Pittsburgh Hockey Now, do some stories during the games. I do the Locked On Penguins podcast every weekday.
Yes.
Ton of fun talking about 20, 25 minutes. I love everyone that listens to it. And my Twitter is at Hunter Hodies. In case you guys can't spell my last name, Hodies.
And Jesse, obviously we know you're at the Athletic. What do you got coming up in the near future? Anything that you already have planned out?
We're going to talk a little bit about Teddy Beluga coming up, and then also that wedge I talked about with the penalty kill.
Okay.
We're going to dive a little bit more into that too.
Sweet. Well, listen, thanks so much, guys, for coming on 412 Sports Talk. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify or iTunes. It means the world to us. Thanks again for MCM Studios for sponsoring the show, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks for listening to 412 Sports Talk. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you like the show, leave us a review, and be sure to tell a friend about your source for all things Pittsburgh sports. Find us on Twitter at MadChad412 and at Eddie_P_412.